just talking about some of the external differences between some of the Dhammayut forest monasteries and say our style. And one thing you have to bear in mind, some of the Dhammayut monasteries, they might have a very, you might say, strict or specialized core wat, where they don't have many meetings, and the place, there's not many new monks, there's no ordinations there, and it's very simple style. But then they'll have another monastery that they're connected with, where say new monks are ordained and begin their training, and they may come to the monastery of the Venerable Ajahn and stay for a while and practice meditation, and they might stay for a year or two, and then they go off to another monastery, and they might have a number of different monasteries connected with each other, and they move around like that. Whereas the Wat Pah monasteries tend to be, everything happens in the one monastery. So you get new monks coming in, newly ordained monks trained, and then you have meetings, and you might, over a period of time, you might have periods where you stop meetings and have quiet time for people to meditate, or you might have individuals take their time off to meditate in a more simple style where they don't have any meetings and so on. In a monastery like this, where you have a number of different monks of different panthas, you have brand new monks, and then you have some who've been around for a while, and then some more senior monks. Then if there's new monks, you'll have meetings so that the new monks have a chance to practice and train themselves if they haven't trained much before. During those periods, well, maybe some of the more senior monks who practiced, they can have permission to practice more on their own, or actually go off for periods of time and practice in quiet places and come back. If there's a suitable time, even the whole monastery, there might be periods where you stop the meeting for a few months, say. Maybe if there are brand new monks still coming in at that time, might have them just come together for the morning or evening meeting, but the majority of the Sangha, the rest of the Sangha, don't have meetings. When you have a system like this, where you have one monastery doing all these functions, it's a place where the monks are ordained from the beginning, where they train from Pakau and Agarika, novice through to monk, from Nawaka monk through to Majjhima to Thera. Then this is the way you deal with that fact that the Sangha is full of individuals with different levels of experience and have been different in the Sangha for different lengths of time. As the Dhammayut style generally tends to divide that up into different monasteries. They'll be in one monastery, could be in Bangkok, could be a city monastery somewhere where they ordain, then they'll move off to a monastery where they're going to practice meditation with a Venerable Ajahn and so on. And so you tend to get a slightly different feel when it's like that. But the monasteries with the Venerable Ajahn, you tend to not get monks just staying there indefinitely for years and years and years and years. Generally they'll be there for a year or two, and then they'll move on somewhere else. If you look at this monastery, the history of this monastery, there was a period when the Sangha grew up, and there's a large number of senior monks, Majjhimas and Theras, maybe even 5 or 10 Theras all living here at the same time. When you have a Sangha and very few new monks, so there was sort of an imbalance. And when you have a Sangha with a makeup like that, then not necessary maybe to have so many meetings and so much of that, because there's so many experienced practitioners living together. But then there's also other issues. If you got, say, 10 Theras living in the same monastery, each Thera is going to have his particular character and views on practice and so on, so there can be issues with that. Then say, for instance, they go to visit Wat Pah for one of the Ngans or something, and Umpoliyam say, well, where are you from, or Wat Map Jan, and another Thera comes, where are you from, Wat Map Jan, end up with all these Theras at Wat Map Jan, and Umpoliyam might say, oh, a lot of Theras here, why aren't you going and practicing and having your own monasteries? And so gradually over time that did change. Some of these Theras went off and lived in quiet places, so then you also have that opportunity. You have a big monastery, central monastery, and then you have some quiet sakhas, but there's still the connection, so they go off, but when the time comes, they still come together here, maybe for different events, and they still keep in contact with Ajahn Anan and come and stay here. So you have both an expansion of the Sangha over time, but there's still a central core and a central kind of unity of the Sangha. Most of the what you call branch monasteries from here, they started in very quiet places, quiet forests, and Ajahn was quite happy for them to stay very quiet for the monks to go and practice there. But it's natural over time. Most places you have an abbot or a senior monk living over time. He'll get to know people. People have faith. Both people come and ordain, and also lay people support the place. So it gradually grows up. So you get more activity, more building, and so most of them don't stay very quiet. They gradually become built up into monasteries that are quite thriving monasteries. And one has to see that's just the natural way of things. But nevertheless, if you have the chance to practice and you're in a quiet situation, well, it's up to each individual to make use of the opportunity they have. And yeah, the ideal of just staying quietly, going on Vindabhat, coming back, having a lot of time just to meditate, not many meetings, not much work, then that ideal that's quite an okay ideal to follow. And if you have that situation, then it's okay. He himself in the past, he left Wat Pah Pong for a period of time, and he went off with just one or two friends, and they stayed in Lopburi, practiced very simply, didn't do any building or receive invitations or teaching or anything. And when the time's appropriate, you can practice like that. But it's also natural just to accept the fact that people have faith, and so wherever there are monks living regularly, well, gradually that monastery, that place will become more established, more built up, more teaching, more invitations will happen. One thing I didn't mention at the beginning, he said if you go off to visit monasteries, you have to go off with wisdom. You take your wisdom with you, and you go and you learn and you study and you see how they do things. It's not enough just to go off with faith. So you say, like there's a teacher, you have faith in the teacher, and you go off, you've got faith in them, you just go and sort of believe everything they say in that sense, just having faith. You also have to stop and contemplate and use your wisdom and think about things. That's the best way to when you go and visit other teachers and travel around and have those experiences. He also said Ajahn Chah's style really was to let people grow and mature in their own way and their own pace, to develop their samadhi. And when people do develop true peace and mindfulness and samadhi inside, well, then everything starts to fall into place. The wisdom starts to come, the understanding how to practice in the situation they're in comes. And he didn't use a style so much of always on your back, telling you do this, do that, always being the one pushing people. He would tend to step back and just let people grow at their own pace, and then when they had questions or they had an issue, they would come to him and ask, and he would give advice based on the specific issue or question. But he wouldn't be sort of standing over everyone, always trying to sort of parent them through their growth as a monk. He would let them practice for themselves and gain samadhi, and because the environment was good, then when people gain some peace, then the insights start to come from that. Is really the one who will make full use of, say, an opportunity when they're living very awake, with maybe just a few monks and no business, no work, no meetings. Somebody who's already developed their samadhi to the point where they need that. Quite naturally they'll seek and need that free time and opportunity to develop the samadhi and develop the contemplation from that. But the mind will almost tell you in its own way, it will know its own level. If one's still in one's level of practice is very much up and down, kind of hit and miss, then it's not so important because one hasn't reached that point where one really needs, or the mind knows it needs its free time, it needs time to be on its own. It might be someone, say, who's reached the level of Upajjhara Samadhi, then they might want to go off and be on their own, and the mind will really be peaceful in that situation and make full use of that situation. And the mind will look after itself. It will know, well, if I'm getting too busy with other things, I can't keep up this level of meditation, so the mind will naturally know how to regulate that. But if one hasn't reached that point, then it's more just working on ideals and thoughts and opinions about it. They're not really coming from true samadhi yet. Anan gave the example when he was a young monk, just a few rains, he really didn't want to join in work and meetings and things, so he's always trying to go to a place where they had no meetings, so he could just practice his samadhi and meditate. And on one level that was good and right, and you could gain his samadhi, but at the same time you could see there's some deep attachment still there, deep buried in the mind, and a sort of a resistance to things like, say, meetings, and that's still a form of attachment, that's still a form of craving and attachment that you could say leading to existence, bhava and jati, leading to an attachment that is binding you to the world. So he said, well, I've got to transcend that. And so one has to use one's samadhi, use one's contemplation to find ways to transcend even, say, views and opinions about things like whether we should have meetings or not, to be working or not, these kind of things, to the point where the mind can be free from that level of opinions and views about the practice. And he saw that for himself. I still have to go deeper in the practice to free myself from that. The thing that will change our views of Dhamma will be the development of samadhi. What will change our views about things, about ourselves, about the practice, will be both samadhi and wisdom. When the samadhi is established in the mind, that will take the wisdom deeper, and then one's views of these things will change. The mind itself will change. In the end, all of the practices that we do, the core work, and the different ubayas that teachers give us, they're all aimed to help us develop mindfulness, and from that mindfulness, wisdom, and from that peace and understanding in the heart. One has to remember that. So each teacher will have his own particular style, character, but the important thing is to have that faith and confidence in the teacher. If you trust the teacher's wisdom and that they are leading you in the right direction towards enlightenment, then you build on that trust and you can follow their teaching. So, say in Ajahn Chah's particular style, his teachings, his practice from Lumpur Ginari, Lumpur Tongrat, Lumpur Mat, and passed it on to Sangha. The teacher has a role to play, in helping to remind us what to do. They'll give us teachings, they'll tell us, don't talk. So the teacher might say, don't talk, it's drink time, don't spend your time chatting, idle worldly chatter. Maybe for a day everyone stops talking, but if people's barami is not very well strongly developed, well, within a day or two they'll be back talking again. Or in his youth as a monk, Lumpur Cha, when it was the cold season, you might say, maybe it's time for everyone to get down and stay in their grots. For him, when he heard his teacher say that, that's it, he's straight down into the grot, staying in the forest. But he said it, say, this year, or he said it sometimes here before, and some monks will take that hint and they'll go down and practice in their grot, others won't, they'll just ignore it. In the end, it comes down to each individual, their barami, and how willing they are to train, and how skilled they are in training themselves, and use the ubayas of the teacher and the place, but in the end it's up to you. And if someone was really committed then to live here, they can practice, they come out for the Bindabata, they go on Bindabata, eat a meal, go back to the kuti, practice Jongkrom for a few hours, have a short rest, come out, do some more Jongkrom, then do the chores. After the chores and the drink, have a quick drink, quietly, don't talk to anyone, then go up to the hall and practice late into the night. If one has the discipline and the commitment, one could do that, and one would probably get quick results in the practice. Samadhi and insight would come. But in the end, it's up to us, isn't it? How we practice, how much effort we put in, and that you can't. That can't be just dependent on the teacher or the place. It's the individual, what they're doing with their practice. And Ajahn said when he was first at Wat Pho, there was a lot of work in those days. Physical work, building, administrative work, and quite tempting, especially when you're a new monk. You have periods when your samadhi seems good and mind's peaceful, lots of piti and sukha, and then periods when it seems to degenerate, and one will tend to say, oh, it's because of the work, because of this, because of that, then my samadhi is degenerated. But through practicing and getting experience, you realise, well, it's actually just the nature of samadhi, especially when one isn't yet fully skilled in keeping the mind mindful and peaceful, training it in that way. Well, it will be up and down, and there will be a sense of gaining samadhi and then degenerating. And that's actually independent of things like work and that, but you'll tend to blame in that way. And then there were these periods of, when he became more senior, well, I'll leave what we'll call, I'll find somewhere, just go off with a few monks. They went off with a few monks. He was at Lamluka for a while. Then more people started to came down here, just a few monks living very simply, and then more people started to come, more monks started to come, one in we wake as well, and we've ended up with a big monastery like this. And then monks would come here, and then it ended up wanting to be more we wake, more people. Well, over the years they've gone off and started these little places, all of them originally just quiet little monasteries, not much happening, but over the years gradually they've become bigger and more, you might say, more successful. Probably now the only one left that's very basic, very simple, is where Ajahn Samlearn is in Ubon. He would be quite happy for monks to go off and just find, if there's a place, a suitable forest, just to keep that very simple and keep a very simple core what. Just living a few monks, go on Bindabat, come back, eat the meal, no meetings, no work, and just live very simply. But obviously there has to be at least one person willing to do that, to be the leader and go and live there and do that. If Sadyamo was interested to do that, he'd be quite supportive. If there's a piece of forest, go off and just live there maybe for a few years and then come back. There's always that option, and he's very supportive of that. Going back, this monastery was very quiet. Say when I myself came to stay here first, it was still very quiet, not very well developed. So we've been through that. Gradually over the years it's become busier, more monks wanted to also come and stay in a place that's nice and quiet, but you get more monks, you get more things happening, more buildings, more people come and so on. So it's become busier, and Ajahn says now he's even thinking, oh, it's time to take early retirement, 55 this year. Okay. Sometimes we get monks here, 55 or 60, who've retired from their jobs, coming to be monks. He's the abbot, he's 55, maybe he should retire. Maybe it's time to let some of the other monks help run the place, and then he can have more time for his own practice and to be quiet. That's the ideal. He says whether he can achieve that 100% will remain to be seen. Maybe he can achieve it 70% or whatever. Just have to see. But because this is an established monastery now, he has his responsibilities, his duties, so one can't turn the clock back, so it's impossible to make it sort of a simple monastery in the forest again in quite the same way, but you can maybe achieve something by having other monks like Ajahn Somchan and maybe helping do the teaching and the running the place, and he just teaches occasionally and has a role to play occasionally. Wherever, in the end, if you're a monk, wherever you are, you have to have sacrifice, you have to have renunciation, you have to be able to give up your time, your energy and views and opinions, and that's just the nature of our lifestyle. And so even in a quiet little place you'll still have to do that, and that's the nature of the life. It's helping you to give up your selfishness in different ways, and when you do give up that, well, the result is that you live together in harmony and you help each other and you have a peaceful monastery, whether it's a few people or many people. That's the same in Thailand, it's the same in abroad, where perhaps things in some ways, although it's a materially wealthy society abroad, you build a monastery there, you're actually more dependent on each other as monks, because there's maybe less Buddhists around, there's less monks around, you really have to help each other. So again, you have to have this willingness to give up your selfishness and your more self-centered sort of views and opinions and that approach to life. But look at the result of that. When you do give up, you yourself will gain from that. You gain peace of mind by learning to transcend or let go of your views and opinions. And you also get a harmonious group of people. If everyone is giving up, then that group, or that social group, whether it's a monastery or a society or a family, whatever, that will be a peaceful place because people are giving up. Just explaining, Venerable Larry was saying sometimes when the monastery is at its busiest, it seems a very confusing place with lots of activities, things happening. Gave the example of when they had the 100 monks ordained temporarily. You'd expect yourself to be not peaceful and unhappy with the situation. We actually found you got a lot of peace at those times. Meditating is quite peaceful in the midst of all this activity. And Ajahn said, well, it's, in the end it's down to your mind, and your mind can be peaceful whether there's a few people or a lot of people. You know, if you know how to practice and you're developing the practice in the right way, the wholesome dhammas are coming, then your mind can be peaceful in any situation. And it's not a fixed thing. You could be living just very quietly in a very quiet forest with just 2 or 3 monks, and you can have lots of suffering, lots of confusion going on in the mind. Or you can be very peaceful in a very busy, large community. It's not a guaranteed thing one way or the other.